morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome to Exceptional Women with Grit, where we interview dynamic women around the world who are all doing phenomenal things. Lee, so good to see you. Welcome back. How was vacation?
Hey, vacation was great. Question: Am I blurry to you, or
You are
am I
not
clean,
blurry.
clear?
Nope. No, you just got
Okay.
a little
Well,
light, little sign on the side, maybe from the vacation,
okay.
but no,
All right. Cool.
no, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Hey, vacation was great. We had a great time. Enjoyed some time away in the very historic Italy and in Rome and Amalfi Coast, all over the place. Venice. It's an amazing place. If you haven't been there, you definitely need to put it on your list of places to go.
Fantastic. Well, we had some fun. I had some fun spinning in the big chair for the last 2 weeks. We had
I
amazing.
heard. I ran into Candace
Uh huh.
and talked to her. She said she had a great time on
Yeah.
the show and enjoyed her time with you. So, way to
Candace was
go!
great. And so was Dr. Quinn. Last week we had Dr. Quinn on. She was an amazing guest as well. And tonight, no
Wonderful.
shortage. We have Chenee Joseph this evening, right?
Yes. Yeah, we're looking forward to that.
So super excited to be on. Again, welcome to Exceptional Women with Grit. We ask that you go ahead, grab your favorite beverage of choice, grab a friend, let them know that we are on and we are interviewing another dynamic woman tonight. Go ahead and follow us, like us, share us. You can find us on www.womenwithgrit.com. You can find us on YouTube at Exceptional Women with Grit. You can find us on Facebook at Exceptional Women with Grit. Regardless of where you look, you'll find Women with Grit. We love to make sure that you get an opportunity to say hello to us. So feel free to leave your name, city, and state in the chat so we can be sure to say hello to you throughout the broadcast. Hello, Sharonda. How are you doing this fabulous evening? Love to see you. So great that you are on this evening as well. And we're just excited to be back on. But we are extremely excited about our guest this evening, and we'll take an opportunity to bring her back on. But before I do, I want to make sure that you guys get to know a little bit more about Chenee. As you all know, we bring nothing but the best for you all, and tonight is no shortage. So let me just tell you a little bit more about Chenee. Chenee Joseph has built a thriving career as a community development professional, showcasing notable businesses and financial acumen in the urban revitalization sector. Her dedication to fostering positive change in underserved areas has led to significant advancements, particularly in the affordable housing solutions area. Often dubbed the guardian of Sweet Auburn, Miss Joseph has played a crucial role in preserving Atlanta's rich African American history. Her unwavering commitment to community development is apparent in the transformative 32 million mixed-use commercial development project Front Porch on Auburn, the first of its kind in the historic district in 15 years. Miss Joseph's journey began with an internship at the Historic Development District Corporation in 1997, which provided her with valuable insights into community and urban development that ultimately contributed to her exceptional achievements. Since 2018, as CEO and president of HDDC, Atlanta's longest standing community development corporation, Ms. Joseph has advanced HDCC's mission to restore the historic district encompassing Old Fourth Ward, Sweet Auburn, and the Martin Luther King National Historic District. Her leadership has driven significant progress towards achieving these results. Ms. Joseph is a distinguished professional with a bachelor's degree in journalism from Georgia State University and a master's in building construction from the Georgia Institute of Technology. Ms. Joseph is a visionary, thought leader, passionate about creating innovative solutions for community development, sustainability, and preserving Black culture for future generations. Throughout her career, Ms. Joseph has demonstrated exceptional skills in project management, community engagement, and real estate development. As a project consultant, in the Draper and Associates. At Draper and Associates, she acquired vital budget management skills while overseeing a $17 million budget, directing various capital improvements and demolition projects, and adeptly managing the Atlanta Housing Authority portfolio. As senior manager of the neighborhood revitalization, Chenee was instrumental in planning and executing key neighborhood stabilization and development projects aligned with the HUD Choice Neighborhood Transformative Plan for Ashview Heights, Vine City, and Atlanta University Center. Ms. Joseph's significant business acumen has greatly contributed to her success in fostering the positive community changes while achieving notable financial milestones. She is a results driven professional with a wealth of experience in project management, real estate, and community development. Leading multi million-dollar projects, she establishes solid partnerships and fosters constructive relationships with various stakeholders, and her dedication to work quality, punctuality, and cost effectiveness has solidified her excellent reputation. So we bring to the stage Miss Chenee Joseph. Well, good evening, Miss Chenee. How are you?
I am doing well. Good evening to you. Thanks for having me.
Hi,
So
Chenee. How
excited
are you?
to see you on.
Good.
Good. Good to see you. Like the springtime pink going on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we love to say, thank you for taking the time for joining into our show this evening. We'd love to kick this off by learning a little bit more about you and learning more about your story. So tell us your unique story of grit.
So I'm originally from the Virgin Islands. I was born in St. Croix.
Okay. St.
Moved to
Thomas.
Atlanta. Yeah, St. Thomas. Okay,
My favorite.
respect. And
I
so
lived on St. John for a little while, so
we'll go ahead and bring
Very
you
good.
into. Come on. Yes, we covered all of them, right?
yeah.
But I moved to Atlanta when I was about 10 years old. And just really grew up in on the South Side, Riverdale, and ended up going to started actually at Clark Atlanta for my undergrad. And after my first year, that I was well. Second year, I love my HBCUs, but we couldn't quite get that financial aid together, and so I had to take a semester off. And in doing that, when I did that, uh, the executive director at the time at HDDC, who is also my aunt, said, "Why don't you come over and just work with us a little bit, intern,
Mm-hmm.
until you figure out what to do?" And that's when that happened in '98, I guess. And actually, I got bit by the community development bug. That was when I had my first taste of what neighborhood work looked like. And really didn't understand, or I guess really grasp the impact of what I was experiencing. HTBC has always been an organization led by strong Black women. And so when I was in this environment, I didn't know that what I was experiencing and what I was being exposed to was not normal. And so I just took it for granted that, women can do construction and development and all of these things. And so fast forward, I worked there for a few years, started working at a construction company while I was doing my undergrad at Georgia State, and realized that I really liked the work, and eventually decided to finish my degree at Georgia State in communications. But afterwards, still working with construction companies, felt that in order to really get, I guess, the respect that I felt that I needed, that I deserved based on the work that I was doing, that I needed to go back to school, and enrolled in Georgia Tech in their building construction program. And while I was in that program, thought, I'm about to graduate, probably need a job. And so reached out to the one of the counselors at Georgia Tech, said, "This is what I'm interested in." They had a relationship with Atlanta Housing Authority. I interviewed with them and started working as an oversight manager for their senior portfolio. After I'd done that for a few years, I was promoted to the senior manager of neighborhood revitalization. Atlanta Housing had just been awarded a choice neighborhood grant through HUD. And I applied for that position and was given that position and worked there for almost 2 years. And while I was working there, I was actually on the board at HGDC. Um, and HGDC at the time had been a working board. When the recession hit in 2008, it hit the organization really hard. And so we had reverted to a working board because we still had a lot of property to manage. The summer, I think, of 2017, actually fall of 2017, we needed, about $20,000 just to break even. By January of 2018, some really lucrative deals and projects were coming up. And so we were actually at a positive of about 3 million. And that allowed us to resume operations. And so I was asked to apply for what was then the executive director role. And I, was given that position in 2018 as executive director, and then promoted to president and CEO in September of 2021. And I've been in that role since then, and really just focusing, while our portfolio is throughout the Martin Luther King Historic District and Fourth Ward. Right now, our work is very much focused, as you heard during the intro, on the Sweet Auburn corridor.
No, phenomenal.
Yeah, so very interesting. I had an opportunity. I started a CDC here in Nashville that was associated with a large church here, and and one of the components is the and we started it in 2021 or 2022, I think. So, but and talk to us about and this. We'll get more and more into you, but everybody's talking about affordable housing right now. Of course, in Nashville, it's a commodity. It's average house price here has risen. I think an average house in Nashville now is $440,000 or something like that. A lot to buy a lot now is $150,000 just to buy, something that's 50 by 150. So, that would be almost considered affordable housing is $150,000. So, talk to us about, what affordable housing is and why is it so difficult for communities across the country to grapple with it and get it under control for the number of residents that need it.
Sure. I mean, well, you really just said it, right? Affordable housing is the definition that is circulating basically says that a person should be able to, or they should not be paying rent and or a mortgage that is more than 30% of their income. We've, since then have realized that even that 30% is a lot, and you really shouldn't be paying more than about 20% of your income. But that's not what's happening. The reality is most people are paying closer to 40 and 50% of their income. In addition to that, HUD has created what is called an area median income for neighborhoods and communities. And so they take the average of a bunch of places and they determine that based on your family size and how much you make, or based on your family size, this is what your income should be, which determines how much you can afford. So for instance, in Atlanta, 100% of that area median income, or AMI, is about $98,000 a year for a family of four, right? And so if that family is two adults making $50,000 a year, then what we're saying is that family, I think, should be able to purchase a house that's $300,000 or something like that. Well, here's the reality. There's no parcel of land in which you would build a single family house in my community that's going to cost you $300,000. That's just the land. Right about now, to build a multifamily unit, the cost that we're including in our performance is about $300,000 per unit. So if that is just the cost to build it, then where is the space to include the profit and all those other things, overhead, everything that it takes to actually bring a unit online? And so because of that, we've now created a space in which housing is really not affordable unless you're using some sort of tax credit, some sort of subsidy, something else to offset the cost to actually bring that unit to market. And so I think that because we have a lack of, I guess, policy to ensure that we keep affordable units affordable and have enough opportunities and subsidies to increase that inventory, we run into a space where we're constantly being reactive as opposed to proactive in how we increase the affordable housing inventory.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. I asked that question, because so many people think that developers are bad people, because stuff seems to be to be expensive to them. And I think you really help our listeners understand, why the costs are what they are. At $300,000, you haven't even paid your realtor to sell it yet.
No, you haven't. And to be fair, there are some developers that aren't that great. Let's be
Mm-hmm.
honest, right?
Yeah.
And the average developer is really not, they're concerned about
Mm-hmm.
maximizing their potential, maximizing the return on their investment. And if that means that they have the ability to push the market, then they will continue to do so, which is why we get into gentrification and different things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
a developer can only do what they are allowed to do. If
Mm-hmm.
there are zoning requirements that are put in place, if there's restrictions and different things that prohibit them from building certain types of housing, they have to adhere to that. And so, there are opportunities in which we can put sort of some bumpers and parameters on what developers do. But the truth of the matter is, very few places have those types of policies in place. And so to
Right.
me, the development community is kind of like, it's like water. It'll go wherever it can go. And if you
Mm.
want water to stop, then you have to have a dam. And there are
Right.
just very few communities that have said, hey, before you come here, you have to do this, right? It's usually communities being reactive to what a developer has done. And a lot of times they are just not at the table as those decisions are being made.
Gotcha. So you're working, in the Auburn area, Auburn Street area, and I love what's been going on over there. But you brought up earlier, in development and construction, there aren't a whole lot of women in the field. What do you have? What does it take, for you to excel in many would call a male-dominated industry?
Um, Persistence, right? You have to. I've heard a lot more no's than I've heard yeses.
Hmm.
Um, I also, especially starting out, I started as working for a drywall company as an office manager. I actually started as a receptionist and then an office manager. And I just really liked the way that I could relate to our subs, the people that I worked with. Um, and I got it. I understood it. And so because it turned out to just be something that I was really interested in and passionate about, it didn't even occur to me that I was going to have an issue as a woman first, right? Until I was actually on a job site. And it really didn't hit me that, oh, you're also going to have a problem being an African American woman until I actually went to Georgia Tech. And I was like one of maybe three in my
Hmm.
graduating class.
Right.
And so I just did not absorb or even consider those as issues. I was just concerned about doing the very best that I could. And I think that is really what helped me to become successful, is that no matter whether I'm a woman, black, whatever, what you could not deny was my skill
Mm-hmm.
and what I had accomplished. And so I let that speak for me as opposed to buying into what these barriers were going to be to me being successful.
And I think that is so key, is that the space of recognizing that when you have that skill and you have that acumen, the ability to continue to push forward and allow that to show resonates. I want to talk now. I know you mentioned that you're originally from St. Croix in the islands. When you think about your upbringing and how it has prepared you for the space that you're in, can you speak a little bit to that, or even allude to some of the people who have influenced you along the way, or those who have supported you along the way?
Sure. I honestly I didn't even find out until I had started this work that my family has been in the construction and development space for years.
Wow.
My grandfather was a contractor. Had no idea. He was just grandpa, didn't know. My uncle's also a contractor in the islands. My dad swears he's a contractor. That's a whole other conversation. um, and my grandmother was a real estate investor. To me, she was a stay at home mom, but I did not know that she had such an extensive real estate portfolio, which is what helped her to be
Mm-hmm.
able to stay home with her kids, right?
Mm. Right.
And so realizing that that's actually in my blood, first of all, really gave me motivation. In addition to that, like I mentioned before, my aunt, who is in Tamanika Youngblood, she is actually who Coretta Scott King recruited to move HDDC forward, has been and is a mentor of mine. There's very few Black women that I can really say that I look up to in this particular space.
Mm-hmm.
And even, she and I have talked about how my experiences now in some cases are even different than what she experienced, but just having someone that's had to overcome barriers. Think about what we go through now in really just gender equality. She was doing this work in the early to late 90s, right? So we're talking about just really oppressive environments at times when it comes to the work that women was doing, and then add to that construction and development. So really looking towards her. And then also too, a lot of the women that I met through HDDC, I mean, I hold all of them with me. Marie Kauser, who was a community advocate, and someone that I regard as my godmother, was truly the heart of Sweet Auburn. And I hear her all the time, right? Because she's very clear on how do you treat people. At the end of the day, this is why we do the work. Donna Tyler, who was the VP of construction at HDDC, was the first woman that I really came across that owned her own hard hat and boots. And I was like, all right, I guess that's just what you do. But
Right.
she did her work. And so just again, that environment really nurtured me, and let me know that you can do absolutely anything. There was no barriers to the success that I could achieve.
Yeah. So do you drive around with your boots and hard hat in the car, just in
I
case you have
do.
to?
Right
Yeah.
now, my boots aren't in the car, but my hard hat absolutely stays in the car.
Mhm.
And we're actually in construction right now. I don't necessarily have to have it, but if OSHA is listening, then yes, I have it at
Yes.
all times. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, you got to stay ready.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I always. Well, I have some boots that I can wear in mud if I'm looking at land. It's just
Mhm.
uh, tools of the trade just to walk around.
Absolutely.
So talk about some of the. I guess you talked about gentrification. You kind of alluded to it. Um, Talk about kind of that process from redlining to gentrification, and help us understand, I guess both spectrums, but how do we get to gentrification? Because these are neighborhoods that ultimately, I always say, if you don't sell it, nobody can buy it. But talk about that process, and then also talk about what you tell residents, when they're thinking about selling their house in a historically Black community, what they should be thinking about, and as far as pricing and everything.
Well, there's so much to unpack there. So I think first, in starting with gentrification, that's really what happened to Sweet Auburn to a certain extent. If you think about how uh, when desegregation hit, Black people had an opportunity to go live wherever they wanted to live. And so we left in droves, unfortunately, and did not bring our resources back to the neighborhood. And so that left a lot of property to be purchased. And eventually, as revitalization efforts started, I can tell you HGDC, when we started doing our work in the 90s, we would build a house for about $100,000, $150,000.
Hmm.
There were no restrictive covenants or anything that prevented the resale of that home, and so someone could live there for 3 years. In 3 years, they flipped it for 300,000. We have a house that we know we built for 150, sold I think a couple months ago for 750, right?
Wow.
And so even though we figured it out halfway through the process, it still in some cases was a little too late, because
Hmm.
you now had a situation where we had created this product to do good and to provide affordability, but because we did not control the market early, we now had created, though it may have been an opportunity for generational wealth for some, it started what essentially became the hyper gentrification that we're experiencing right now. In addition to that, when you think about or understanding what redlining really is, you know, people talk about what it was without understanding that it's still happening, right? HTC was a
Right.
victim of redlining a year ago. And basically, when we were working on our project, appraiser came out and significantly undervalued our project by millions of dollars, simply because he could not fathom this project that we were creating being located in Auburn Avenue, and even
Hmm.
took comps from Tucker, Georgia, which is like almost 30 miles away,
Right.
right? And so that had catastrophic effects for us, but we had to be courageous enough to stand up to our lending partners and say, if you're truly going to invest in affordable housing and be a true social impact fund, then you're not going to be able to use the same tools that you would use for a market rate deal, and
Hmm.
understanding what's happening in this place and in this location. But it's knowing that language and knowing that conversation to even be able to say that this isn't right, and being, again, courageous and disruptive enough to stop the process so that there can be some adjustments. When we talk about Sweet Auburn, that corridor is mostly churches and nonprofits. And the reason why we even remotely have a voice is because we own our property.
Hmm.
And so that's the conversation that we have with any of our homeowners, and specifically our legacy homeowners, is that, I heard the expression yesterday, dirt is power. And
Hmm.
that's the truth.
Yeah.
If you own the dirt, you definitely control the conversation.
Mm.
And so if you want to continue to be relevant in this space, you have to have ownership. And if ownership is no longer possible for you, which we want to do everything we can to help you with that, then make sure that you're passing that on to someone else within your generation and your family, so that we can continue to have that generational wealth more than anything.
Okay.
I
Wonderful.
think that that is incredibly powerful, and especially as you have been active in the field and an advocate for the African American community. I'm interested in knowing, as you have evolved and as you have continued to climb in your journey, have you found any self limiting beliefs that you had to overcome, or maybe some of those who have kind of helped you along the way to overcome those barriers?
Sure. I think when I actually started this work with HTDC, that was probably the most intimidating to start. My background is construction, and people think that, oh, well, if it's construction, then you know development. Development is a totally different beast. It really is.
Hmm.
And on top of that, doing it for a nonprofit organization, you really have to have some level of philanthropy. There's got to be some philanthropic support for your work to be successful. And I wasn't a fundraiser. That's not what I do. I build things. I look at plans and I build things. That's what I'm good at. And so now you're telling me I got to not only go raise debt and equity, but I also have to go ask people to give me free money. I don't like to ask for anything, right? And so
Let alone
just,
something free.
you know, like, oh, this is different. And
Yeah,
so I had to get used to that, and I had to get very fearless. And I mean, I thought I already had a tough skin, but it had to get tougher,
yeah.
Hmm.
right? Um, and so that was really difficult for me, because I was already just in a place where I knew people wanted me to fail. And I knew that I was not being looked at as someone who was qualified for this position because, there was the thought that, oh, your aunt gave you this job. That's not what happened. She wasn't even involved in my hiring, and if I wasn't qualified, I would not have been asked to take the position. Then it was like, well, she's never developed anything before. No, I hadn't officially developed anything before, but I've worked on every kind of project possible. And at the end of the day, I have been able to have the first, project on Auburn in 15 years. So
Wow.
whether or not with another two coming behind it, and HDC is expanding into other cities and counties and potentially other states within the next 2 years.
Hmm.
So whether or not I didn't know what to do, it was in me to know what to do. And I had to really kind of toughen up a little bit,
Hmm.
have my prepared answer when people would ask me, literally sitting in a meeting. So, how did you get here? Right? What is your background? Those types of questions to try to figure out, why is this Black woman sitting at the head of this table and everyone is calling her boss? And I eventually just ended up putting my degrees on the wall. Like, so y'all stop asking me. You can read it here. And at the end of the day, we got to get this work done. And once that was my position and my attitude, that really helped me just to overcome. And it kind of quieted a lot of those voices that seemed to have questions that to me weren't even relevant to what we were trying to accomplish.
So what's that feeling like when you kind of come into your own and you have that confidence, that I am the boss, and and to your point, let's get the work done. But what's that feeling? I know a lot of people are trying to get to that feeling, and
Yeah.
wouldn't know it if it hit them. So what's the feeling, and what did it really take for you to pull that out?
Initially, it was uncomfortable because to hear, especially when you're coming from working your way up, and I know this sounds crazy, it was never my intent to be the boss. It was always my intent to do the work, right? I
Hmm.
knew that I wanted to help people, I wanted to revitalize communities, and I didn't want to answer the phone. I just knew that I was not meant to answer phones. That doesn't work for me. So we got to go do something different, right? That doesn't make me have to do that. And when you kind of strip that away, it lean more towards me taking steps to being the boss. And at first, it was, like I said, it was just uncomfortable to be in that space. But, M. Tamika told me, if you're going to be a part of something, you either need to own it or control it, because
Hmm.
that's the only way that you're going to get what you want out of it. And I kind of took that to heart and became just really comfortable with my position. And I think now it is, my staff will tell you, I don't push, being the boss is not important to me. What's important to me is that everyone's doing their part, and how do I help you get there?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
It just so happens that that's the position that I'm in. But I think once you have a group of people that believe in you and believe in the work that you do, you don't have to remind anybody about who you are or what your position is. They respect you and they want to see you succeed because they know how dedicated you are to the overall goal of what we're all trying to accomplish.
And would you say that once you realize that you gain that confidence, that you were able to push aside the thought that you had to prove anything to anyone just because you knew who you were?
I mean, I'm still always having to, I still get questions, right? And there's still spaces because, I mean, if you look at the majority of the nonprofits that are successful in Atlanta are run by white males, right?
Hmm.
Most of the ones that are supported
Mm-hmm.
by large foundations are run by white males. And you don't know how many foundations I've had that will say that we just love your work and we love your story, especially in the month of January and February, yet they don't provide us with any subsidy whatsoever, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we know that there is still some reservation.
And so we thank you so much for that, Chenee. We'll pick up exactly where we left off.
All right. Where did we leave off?
I think we were just talking about walking into that space and what does that look like and feel like once you've achieved that position. Um, and just, I guess, really summing that up for me, it's having a group of people that work for me technically, but understanding that we're working together.
Right.
And they know that the title is just really not really relevant. It's more about how are they supporting this larger mission, because just like I support them, they definitely want to make sure that they support me so that we can ultimately be successful and achieve this goal.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you had mentioned, talked about some of the foundations. Now, as an outsider to Atlanta, I live in Nashville, and kind of really across the country. We look at Atlanta as this, this mecca, this chocolate city, where that kind of stuff doesn't exist. Where the foundations and the companies would be very supportive of, you know, uh, black endeavors and operations. Um, what am I missing something, or are we over uh, glamorizing, the plight of people of color in Atlanta and opportunities, or just maybe what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of complexity to Atlanta, and um, I say that I truly love my city, so we won't put it all out there. But I will say, just like any place, that we've got some things that we've got to work on, a lot that we need to correct as it relates to how we support our Black-led organizations.
Okay.
In Atlanta, we do not have a lot of our foundations are really focused on really children,
Hmm.
education, and animals.
Yeah.
um, and so it's just really difficult when you start talking about preserving space for Black people. Yeah, it sounds good in theory, but there
Hmm.
really isn't a lot of support to do that. And the way that we do it is so unapologetic. And doing it in a way that we're saying from the beginning, we are building what we build. One, so that it can be affordable in perpetuity. Because I don't want to chase tax credits every 15 to 20 years. If we're going to build
Right.
it, it's affordable forever.
Right.
In addition to that, we build our developments to house programming. So we're very focused on improving people's lives. And when you start talking about intention, I think sometimes that gets really scary and it goes over the heads of foundations, and making the connection, because we look like a private development firm because that's just the way that we operate. But
Right.
you have to listen, right? Because if we didn't operate that way, there's no way that we would make it. We
Hmm.
wouldn't even be relevant. And so I think that sometimes can cause a barrier to the types of support and the amount of support that we get, which is why we really focused on a mixed income model so that we could self subsidize our work and not be so dependent upon philanthropy. And
Hmm.
that's a successful model to a point, but it's very difficult to get around the need for that additional support if you're really going to be as impactful as you need to be.
Which is very, very important. I want to switch topics just a little bit and kind of bring it more centered towards you as well as your role, or the role that you played. Can you speak to us a little bit about, if you had another woman that was coming up through the ranks, what is one or two things that you would want her to know so that she's prepared, so that she's confident, so that she shows up and that she owns the room?
I think that it's really important um, to be just to be okay with who you are, right?
Yeah.
I am an introvert. I can be very quirky. I don't really care for people half the time. I'm very focused on the mission. And I'm okay with all of that. I don't make any apologies for who I am. And I think once you just become confident and just comfortable in yourself, everything falls into place as long as you show that you mean it with this work. I also think that it is extremely important to take time for yourself. I really just, I guess, got that last year after doing this work for 4 years at that time. But if you learn to take time for yourself starting out, that really really prevents that burnout, and it helps to keep you fresh, keep you creative, and keeps that stamina going, because I have a lot of people depending on me, And if I go down, literally a whole operation goes down. So you've got to make sure that you take care of yourself so that you can be here for not just your employees, but for your neighborhood and for your family.
Very, very powerful. Well, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to get some questions from our guests. So if you're tuning in and you're just tuning in, you want to make sure that you go back and catch the replay. But while you are here, please feel free to leave your questions in the chat function and we will be sure to address them accordingly. We do have a couple of questions, and I'm going to just kind of go back up a little bit. So the first question we have is from Kevin Walker. He says, having started in the MLK district and now Sweet Auburn area, what future zones and areas do you anticipate being able to help develop further?
I can't tell you that, sir. You gotta wait till we get there. We don't do real estate in the public. But I will say that we are looking in other areas in Metro Atlanta, other areas in South Georgia. Just we actually get calls all the time from as far as Houston, Richmond, wherever. And so we're really focusing now on what our one fee for service arm looks like. And then two, making sure that we're coming into places that we're being invited by the community, not just showing up and buying property. So building out that model as well, which is somewhat unique to what most developers and even community developers approach the work.
Right. Charelle, you may be on mute.
Thank you for that. I said we have another question from Sharonda Scott. She says, Chenee, what was your biggest challenge and your greatest achievement?
I think the biggest challenge was, I think the first big challenge was, just finishing my degree was a challenge. I was working full time. I also have a daughter, and at the time she was very young, and so I was raising her, and I was also going to school full time. And so doing all of that was just a lot. And there were times that I felt like, is this really worth it? Right. Obviously it turned out to be. I think the second challenge was stepping into HDDC. When I started the work in 2018, there was no staff. And so not only did I have to reestablish the organization, but I had to literally create our culture. And you start from the beginning, and that was very hard. And so I think that one of the accomplishments was recently we were at an affordable housing conference where there were a lot of other housing professionals from all over the United States. And there were so many people outside of Atlanta that knew our work. That spoke to me and let me know that we're on the right path, and people are seeing that this organization is different and they want to work with us. And once I started really getting those kinds of calls, we want to know how you did this. That let me know that we've arrived. We're getting there.
It's powerful. Thank you. Thank you for that. So again, if you all have any questions, feel free to leave your questions in the chat function for Chenee. Question I have for you is, speaking about the passion that you have, do you believe that purpose is necessary to be an effective leader, whether it be in corporate, whether it be a nonprofit, or any space? Do you believe that you have to have passion for the mission?
I don't know how you do the work effectively without having passion. Because I'm up sometimes as early as 7 on my phone doing work. Sometimes I don't lay down until 9, 10 o'clock, just coming straight off of the computer. And it's not because I'm billing hours, right? It's because I understand that if we do not get this deal done, that means that we're losing all kinds of legacy in my community. It means that as a single mother who literally was trying to figure out how in the heck am I going to even afford a place to live for my daughter, I need to be able to provide some place for other single moms, to be able to be in neighborhoods that have access to food, have good school systems. And so unless you care about the work that you're doing, I find it very difficult when you're doing hard work to do it without being called or without having a passion for the work.
I love that.
So Chenee, now that you're considered an expert in development and in the construction industry. What what do you say to young girls to encourage them to not just follow their dreams, but even there are some girls that may not understand the opportunities in your field. What do you talk to them about, and how do you encourage them to look at into the construction development field?
I encourage them to look for the part of the process that speaks to them. I mean, architects can be a part of the process, and so can
Hmm.
engineers. There's different areas there. And so find the thing that really speaks to you, that you really enjoy, and then dig deeper. Continue to dig deeper. Always remember to bring the people along with you, right? Because you're doing it for a reason. There's a purpose behind it. Going back to just my own story, just doing the best that you can to not show that you're intimidated. You can be intimidated. Sometimes it's a lot, right?
Hmm.
But it's also being able to have that poker face to say, do it anyway. Do it scared. I mean, I tell my own daughter that all the time. Go do it scared. I'm not saying you're not going to be scared, but still
Right.
keep going.
Still got to do it, right? Can't,
Absolutely.
can't pay any bills but scared.
Sure can't.
And then what do you think the industry could do if you were teaching your industry leaders and fathers and mothers or what have you about how do you bring how you bring more women and women of color into the industry and set for success? What would you what were maybe the top three tips you would give them to do that?
Well, I definitely think we don't have enough internship opportunities, and specifically paid internship opportunities. The
That's Lord.
time when we have people trying to work for free is over. No one can really
Mm,
do that anymore. And so, being intentional around providing paid opportunities for people to learn. Also, being intentional about seeking out our HBCUs, and really going to a source where there is an aggregate amount of young Black talent that really just needs exposure.
mhm.
That's extremely important. And I also think that, our male counterparts have got to be advocates, right? Because if we know that we're in male dominated fields, then the only way that that really changes is if males understand, our male counterparts understand that they are going to be a part of the problem if they're not a part of our solution. And so they have to appreciate our value as well and say that there needs to be change to ensure that we do have equality in our workplaces.
Okay.
I love that. So, Chenee, would love to learn a little bit more about you and your family. You mentioned that you have a daughter, and how old is your daughter?
My daughter is 19. She will be 20 in August.
Oh,
August
cool.
4th is her birthday. Yeah.
Okay.
She's
Fantastic.
got Obama's birthday. She will let you know that. She is, she's a sophomore at Spelman, studying computer science.
Hmm.
Um, she will actually be studying abroad. She leaves on Saturday. She's going to Japan for about a month. So I'm
Wow.
super excited for her. And I really love that, Kaylin has been coming with me to community meetings since she was 5 years old. I mean,
Hmm.
from the very beginning, I had someone remind me that I would have to give her fruit snacks and a Capri Sun, and had to have two of each just to make sure we can get it through the meeting, or it was going to go bad. Um, and she remembers those meetings, but I'm hearing her conversations and she's repeating some of the same industry terms and understanding what's going on just by being exposed. So just really happy to finally see that as a parent, that she really understands the work, even though it wasn't intentional, but there's still an
Right.
appreciation for what I'm trying to do.
Hmm.
Good.
Hey, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and then when you got the apple with the tree, then it's going to really learn some stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. My parents are they live in Atlanta right now. My father recently retired, and so they're actually moving back to the Virgin Islands in about a year or two. So really excited about that for them. Um, and I have a sister. My sister is she lives in LA. She is a film producer. She's super awesome. I can't really tell you what she does. She can't tell you what I do, but we
Mhm.
just know that we're dope. And that's
He's
that's
producing film, and you're producing construction and
Home,
and
exactly.
affordable homes.
life.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and it all works out. And so most of my mom's family, actually, my mom's from New York, and there was a time where all of her family literally migrated to Atlanta, and now all of her family has, for the most part, migrated to California, and so
Well,
she's the last one left. So shortly, I'll be here, kind of without the family, and so who knows what happens? I haven't really decided how long I'll stay in Atlanta. Atlanta will always be my base. I mean, that'll never change, but I am interested in traveling and potentially living in someplace different and just seeing what kind of change and what kind of impact I can have in another community.
okay.
Of that.
Sure, whatever it is, you'll be successful, and the community will benefit from you being there.
I
Exactly.
hope so.
Mhm.
So, do you have, as we're, believe it or not, kind of starting to wind down on the time, what, any last nuggets or anything that you would leave for our guests? What are some resonating points that you would like to share?
Well, just that, your community and your neighborhood is really important because that's how you live. It affects your life, and any opportunity that you have to get involved, whether it is a neighborhood association or attending neighborhood planning units or just understand how your community works, provides you with a better sense of how you make an impact and have a seat at the table in how you live. And I just urge everyone, even if you just go to 2 meetings a year, just check them out. You would be so surprised how you learn about so many things that are happening, and then how you can become involved and create an environment in the neighborhood that you want to see. That's really important.
So, give us an idea of where a couple of your projects are, and then also how people can reach you in your organization through your social media channels or what have you.
Sure. So our front porch project that I mentioned, it's on Auburn Avenue between Jackson and Hilliard. It's about 100,000 square feet, affordable commercial, affordable housing, 20,000 square feet of rooftop gardens.
Oh,
There's an
nice.
art gallery. It's going to be an amazing, amazing project. It will be completed in August of next
Okay.
year.
Okay.
So we're super excited about that. Henderson Place is another project that we have that's also in the Auburn corridor. It's a rebuild, but it'll be 76 units with a 4,000 square foot grocery store
Nice.
on the first floor. So super excited about that. And then we've got a larger project, which is an initiative called SAGE, which is Sweet Auburn, Green, and Equitable. And that is more of our heart project. It's really looking at all of our different stakeholders that have development projects in process, and how do we leverage all of our different projects to really support the necessary programming that we know that we need. And so looking at how do we create an urban agriculture ecosystem, how do we ensure that all of the nonprofits and organizations that are focused on self-sufficiency are working together to create a space where those who are unhoused can move towards the different levels of self-sufficiency, but having the community at the table on how we create that plan. And so you can learn about that at our website, hdc.org. Sage is a tab right up there where you can learn about that work and how you can support the work that we're doing to truly revitalize and do it in a way that's holistic and has the community at the table.
I love it. I'll actually be in Atlanta next week. I'm gonna try to swing by and put my hard hat on.
All right,
Take
come on through.
take a look at take a look
Can
at
you
what
give
you
me
have
that
going on.
website once more? Is it hddc.org?
Yes, hdc.org.
Okay, thank you.
We're also on Instagram. I believe that's HDDC Community. And I believe that handle is also on Facebook as well.
And if someone wants to get in touch with you directly,
Sure, they can reach me. My email address is cjoseph@hddc.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chenee. This has been such an amazing time. And thank you for taking time out of your schedule to connect with us tonight to share your story and enlighten us as it relates to the affordable housing space. I'm going to do a quick recap and then we will close out for the evening. But this has just been such an amazing time. Lee, anything before I do the recap?
I don't know. This is phenomenal. I really enjoy getting to know you and understanding what the work you're doing in Atlanta. Of course, it's work that's people are trying to do all across the country as it relates to housing and just the need for housing. People don't realize what housing means outside of just having a roof over your head. There's a lot of social benefits to people having housing and having their own place in safe places and in high quality, which is what it sounds like you're doing. I would love to see when you're finished and you have your rooftop garden done, what that looks like. That sounds like an idea I should steal. Um,
Take it.
So,
yeah.
Chenee,
So,
Lee failed to mention, but Lee's also in the development space as well.
He did, and we should definitely talk offline. Always interested in exchanging ideas with other practitioners for sure.
okay, cool. Yeah, I was there. I was in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago for Marcus and Melachap have an annual meeting I come to. So yeah, I'll try to we'll connect and I'll try to reach out to you when I'm in town.
Sounds good.
All right, Charelle, this is a phenomenal thing that Charelle does. Um, Her wrap up. If somebody is wondering what the show was about today, if they fast forward to the wrap up, they'll get it all.
But they want to watch it from the very beginning, you
That's
know?
no
Yes.
doubt. That's what they should do. But this world of microwave.
The Cliff Notes version of it. Yes. Well,
Yes.
one, thank you all again for your time and thank you for taking the time to connect to Women with Grit. I just want to share a couple of points that Chenee mentioned throughout the entire space, as well as your ability to apply them to your life. She talked about the space of being persistent and the space of recognizing yourself. And specifically, she talked about the affordable housing space and recognizing that if you surround yourself with people who you can glean from and be able to relate to, that can help to propel you in your journey, propel you along the way as well. And when you look at the fact that she talked about the space that know that dirt is power, that unless you give up the seat at the table, that you have that space. And so to lean into it and own it, maintain ownership, to maintain a voice in the conversation, and being able, when it comes to being able to define what takes place within your neighborhood. Build a space of being fearless as well as tough, right? Leaning into the fact that sometimes it's not always comfortable and it won't be comfortable. So do it afraid, do it scared, but do it anyway. It's already within you. So study to show yourself approved when you show up at the table. Know your information better than anyone else and lean into the space of discomfort, recognizing that success is oftentimes on the opposite side of discomfort. And she gave a quote by one of her mentors. She said, if you're going to be a part of anything, either you need to control it or you need to, it wasn't own it, it was controlled on. I got to bring you back up. It was to, I want to make sure I get this quote right. It was, if you're going to
Either
be a
own
part
it
of
or
anything,
control it.
own it or control it. Okay, so I had it right. Either you're going to own it or you're going to control it. Be okay with who you are and do not make apologies for that. So, one of the things that is a resounding theme from one guest to the next is this space of confidence in the ability to own the space and own the room by knowing who you are and the unique difference that you bring to any situation. Be okay with who you are and don't make apologies for it. Say what you mean, show that you mean it, and walk into the space. Be comfortable with taking time for yourself. That's another theme that we see our guests talk about, which is really the space of giving yourself permission to take care of yourself. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, then who is going to be able to do the work that has been uniquely charged to you, right? Focus on your mission when it comes to being an effective leader. Know the purpose for the mission, for the organization, own it and walk in that specific place. Look for the part in the process that speaks most to you and dig in and dig deep. Always bring people along with you. So that talks about being able to not only step into a space, but bring others up as well. And if you are and you find yourself intimidated, don't show it, right? Continue to walk through it and continue to move through it. Your community and your neighborhood is important. So know the odds and ends about it. Be comfortable sitting in on several of the meetings that are taking place within your community, and know how your community works and how to have a seat at the table when it comes to the decision making process. This has been such an amazing time. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Chenee. This has just been so great. And to all
Thanks
of
for
our
having me.
listeners, thank you so much again. To all of our listeners who are coming in, feel free to go back and catch the replay again. If you want to find us, we're on www.womenwithgrit.com. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/exceptional women with grit, or on YouTube at www.youtube.com/the @ and women with grit. We'll see you right here next week at 6 p.m. Central Standard, 7 p.m. Eastern for Women with Grit next week. Take care and have a
Thank
good
you,
one.
everyone. Everyone have an amazing week. Chenee, thank you. It's great to meet you.
Likewise. Take care.
Bye.
Take care.